Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1990's Represent. We're starting out our fifth cycle of 1996 with an album. In this episode, we're talking about the score by Fugees. Just an iconic, amazing rap slash hip hop record. Technically, actually, their second record. Their first record apparently didn't do particularly well. And then they, a couple years later came out with this one, and it's one of probably the best hip hop albums of all time, certainly of the 90s. I have some notes here about it. We're gonna get through those notes and then get to the track list and all that kind of stuff. I absolutely love this album. Kind of was my introduction to Lauryn Hill, who of course a couple years later put out the iconic, amazing Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Wyclef's career got a huge boost from this. Pras, who ended up doing less overall albums than Wyclef, but I think he's done like 2 full studio albums. But the interesting thing is Lauryn Hill's really only done the one, the Miseducation album. And I think I said in the video where I covered that on the 1998 series, where it's basically Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is like a perfect album. And I think she maybe felt that she said everything she needed to say. And also topping that album is probably like an impossibility based on how amazing it is. But we're going to get to our notes on the score, and we'll then cover that. But we can't mention the Fugees without mentioning some of their solo work as well. Let me just open the notebook here. There we go. So the score, first released February 13th, 1996. Like I said earlier, this is their second studio album. Blunted on Reality was their first one, and that came out a couple years earlier. This ended up reaching number 1 on the Billboard 200, and I think it stayed there for like 8 weeks or so. And it did very, very well, both critically and commercially. So reached number 1 on the Billboard 200. Kind of like I said, kickstarted the solo careers at least, of Wyclef, Lauryn Hill, and Pras to a lesser degree. Even though, like I said, Lauryn has only done 1 album, it's like one of the greatest albums of all time. But Wyclef's put out a bunch of music since then. Like the Fugees, it's kind of interesting that they only have 2 studio albums, and they're both like the score is amazing. Blunted on Reality is just it's an alright album. It's not amazing, not incredible, but it's still decent. And then kind of Wyclef and has put out a bunch. Lauryn Hill, like I said, did 1. And Pras has done 2. I actually saw them in concert back, I want to say it was at 2022, I think. It would have been 2023, because it would have been the 25th anniversary of the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill show, or out tour. And they toured that album pretty much in its entirety. I didn't love that concert because the arrangements on the songs were completely different. Because I think there was some credit issues with like they never I think the band that actually did the music on that album ended up winning a lawsuit where they weren't credited, so they basically, if they want to tour that album now, they had to do completely different rearrangements. But the Fugees were also there as I think the first set was Lauryn Hill did a set, and then the Fugees did a set, and they did several of their iconic tracks off this album. I remember people were surprised that Pras was there, because I think at the time he had fallen into some pretty big legal trouble, like federal level legal stuff. I don't really exactly know exactly what it was. I think it was more like tax kind of related crimes, if you will. But people were kind of surprised that he was there. But I think the Fugees part of the show was actually overall better than the Lauryn Hill part of the show. So that's one concert where it kind of, I was left a little bit disappointed with the Miseducation part of that concert, but the Fugees part of the concert was really good. So we've talked about their solo careers a little bit. The score ended up being the 3rd best-selling album of 1996. The singles that came out this album were Fuji Law, Killing Me Softly, Ready or Not, and No Woman, No Cry. Ended up getting nominated, I think, for Record of the Year at the whatever the 1997 Grammys were, and it did win for. I think it ended up winning 2 Grammys, winning for Best Rap Album and then Best R&B Performance by a Group or Duo for Killing Me Softly. And I don't know if All Eyes on Me was nominated for Rap Album of the Year, but that's a huge accomplishment for the Fugees going up again if All Eyes on Me was nominated, because that's also an incredible rap album from Tupac, which we've covered on the show before. But winning against that is just very impressive. The score is a little bit on the longer side, but it's not as long as All Eyes on Me, and maybe that's something that the Academy looks at, was like the overall length of All Eyes on Me. Each of those discs on that album is like an hour, if not over an hour. So sometimes I think like consistency and like having the album be not overly long. Maybe they felt that some of the other albums that were longer maybe overstayed their welcome as far as like runtime goes. Who knows really? But yeah, so won two Grammys for Best Rap Album, and then R&B Performance, group or duo for Killing Me Softly, and their version of Killing Me Softly is just incredible. Lauryn Hill's just incredible singing voice on that. Kind of breaks this out of the realm of it being like an overall hip hop album, because even on Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, it's hip hop, but it's also soul and like R&B. So there's elements of that obviously in the score as well. So the recording process on this, like we said earlier, Blunted on Reality did not do very well, like commercially at all, and then even critically, it reviewed lower than what the score would review at. But their record label gave them a second chance, gave them full artistic control. I think gave them a pretty decent like advance so we could buy like new equipment. They actually set up a recording studio. I think it was in Wyclef's uncle's basement. And there's a quote here. Let me actually pull up the quote. A quote from both Lauryn Hill and Wyclef about the recording of this album. Let me just pull this down here. And it was kind of just about them, basically how they went on to record this album. Let me just type this in here. I can find the quote. I had it saved. All right, there we go. So yeah, so the quote from Wyclef was, so they recorded it from June of 1995 until about November of 1995. And Wyclef was quoted as saying it was a, quote, relaxed pace. It was done calmly, almost unconsciously. There wasn't any pressure. It was like, quote, let's make some music. And it just started forming into something amazing. It sounded like a feel-good hip-hop record to us, and it was different than what anyone was doing at the time. It was 3 kids from an urban background expressing themselves. And then Lauryn Hill also commented or quoted, it says, quote, it's an audio film. It's like how radio was back in the 1940s. It tells a story, and there are cuts and breaks in the music. It's almost like a hip-hop version of Tommy, like what The Who did for rock music. And if you listen to it from start to finish, it definitely has kind of like that, like a narrative quality to it. There's like also like a hallmark of kind of rap albums of this time are like the little skits. I remember there's like a skit where they go into like I think it's like a Chinese restaurant, like a fight starts at a Chinese restaurant. So basically you have songs, you have the skits that kind of connect some of the songs, and then you have just like song going to the song. So reading that quote during my research actually like made the album like feel like more narrative. So I hadn't read that quote before doing the research for this video, but I had recently listened to the album not too long ago, and that quote from Lauryn Hill actually like makes total sense in how the album is like constructed and kind of laid out. Let me actually bring up the reviews here for the album. They're actually all pretty amazing reviews. So AllMusic has the album at a 5 out of 5. The Chicago Tribune has it at looks like a 3.5 out of 4. I think it's Christow's Consumer Guide has it at an A as well from Entertainment Weekly. LA Times has it at a 3.5 out of 4. Pitchfork has it at a 9.3 out of 10, while Q has it at a 4 out of 5. Rolling Stone looks like 3 out of 5. Rolling Stone Album Guide, a better review on that one from basically their original review was a 3. Now they have a 4.5 out of 5, and then Spin has it at a 9 out of 10. We're now going to get into our track listing here. And let me just check the overall runtime on the album. Yeah, it's about a little bit over an hour and 52 seconds actually. So let's just go here. Track 1 is just Red Intro. Track 2 is How Many Mics. Track 3 is Ready or Not. I think Ready or Not may have been the first song I heard from them. I don't know. I think I'll have to look at these singles and how, like, the order of release, but I think the first song music video I remember seeing was for Ready or Not. Anyhow, track 4 is Zealots. Track 5 is The Beast. Track 5 is Fugees Law. Absolutely love that one. Track 6 was Fugees Law. Track 7 is Family Business. Track 8 is Killing Me Softly. Track 9 is The Score. Track 10 is The Mask. Track 11 is Cowboys. Track 12 is No Woman, No Cry. And track 13 is Manifest and Outro. Let me actually just pull up the track list on Apple Music, because I don't know. The skits aren't all that long, so I don't know if the skits are actually, like, on the album or if they're just, let me see here. Yeah, I think the most recent run I listened to is actually the expanded edition, which goes for an hour and 18 minutes. Okay, so The Beast is actually like the song I was thinking of. So The Beast actually has the Chinese restaurant skit in there. So let me just see what track The Beast was. Yeah, track 5, and then it has at the end of it, it has the Chinese restaurant skit, which is a really funny skit. But the singles order, so Fugees Law was the first single that came out at the end of 1995. Then Killing Me Softly came out in May. The third single was Ready or Not, and that was September. And then No Woman, No Cry was December. So I don't remember what the music video order was. I could be mistaking Fugees Law for Ready or Not. I may have been thinking Fugees Law was maybe the first music video I saw. It was either that or I remember hearing Ready or Not. Maybe it was like on remember like my friend had the CD. I could have heard it there. But yeah, some of the tracks I kind of got a little bit mixed up. But I remember when Killing Me Softly came out, and that was kind of just all over the place, and was just an incredible song. This is overall just an incredible hip hop album, and it would have been interesting to see what they would have done had they gone back and done a follow up album at some point. But I think by the time that happened, like by the time this album came out, they were all kind of starting to do their own thing. Like I said, Wyclef's career kind of he went his own way. Lauren did her thing with the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and then Pross ended up doing, I think, 2 studio albums as well. So it would have just been interesting to see, had they ever like reunited and done like a third album, because it would have been Blunted on Reality, The Score, and whatever a third album would have been. But it's just one of the best hip hop albums I think of all time, and certainly of the 1990s as well. But that is going to do it for this video. We'll be back again in a few days with a movie. I'm really excited about that one. I'm going to be watching that soon and getting that video up in just a few days from now. And then we'll be finalizing that with a video game from 1996, and then jumping right back into 1997 and the rest of the decade after that, before we start all over again. But yeah, that's going to do it for now. So remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one.